So you have just gotten your insurance license. You're super excited, but you don't know what to do next. And that is why you're here today, is to figure out a strategy, a pathway, a blueprint to being and getting started in the insurance business, to succeed at it, to develop a career, and to learn what to avoid. So greetings and salutations. My name is David Duford. I own the Dig Agency. We specialize in helping agents be successful selling insurance in the final expense life insurance business. We focus on remote selling, providing free leads to our agents. If you want more information on that, you can go to davidduford.com. So again, the purpose of today's training is to really help you sort through a lot of the options now that you're licensed or about to get licensed when it comes to what products you can sell and what agencies you can join and what companies you can be a part of. There's so much information in the space. You've probably already experienced information overwhelm. And so the purpose of this video is to really walk through, think out, and sort through the options that are in front of you, to know the pros and the cons of everything, as well as your own personal assessment, to ultimately give you the guidance to deciding, where should you fit in the insurance space so that you can have a career and not just a license that goes unused for many, many years, like so many people have. So there's three ways that we're going to go through this process. I think to do this correctly, to kind of sort through the information overwhelm, we first have to take a personal inventory of our personal selves, pros and cons, and about ourselves, and what we prefer, what we don't prefer, what we're capable of doing given our circumstances, what we're not capable of doing. And we all agree this is important, but I'm going to provide you some really important fundamental factors when it comes to selling insurance that you may be unaware of. And we're going to go through those and hopefully sort out kind of, do I fit into this role or do I fit better over here? And this will help you, again, as you do this personal assessment, figure out, what of your options are best. The second thing we're going to do is go through a brief product selection overview. And so the idea behind this is to look at the most popular items or products that are being sold by agents and give you a really quick overview of the pros and the cons of each. Again, you may come into this and all you've heard are my videos, and all you've heard is me talking about how great final expense is. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not always great for everybody. There are elements of final expense that make it bad for some people in some circumstances. It's not always the best option. I think it's one of the better options, of course, but it's not always the best. And we're going to sort through that for each of the products out there. So again, you can get closer to figuring out what works best for you. And then the last thing we're going to do is do a really important training on agency selection. This is something that typically never happens until it's too late. The agent joins an agency that sounds great on paper, maybe even sounded great in the interview, but you, lo and behold, find out a lot of the truth of the agency after the fact, and you're $5,000 deep in the leads that aren't really that good, or you join an organization that won't give you a release. Some of these things you may be unfamiliar with. We'll talk about that soon. But the point is, you might be in a terrible position to move where it becomes more painful than if you'd just done your due diligence. So this video is going to provide you the due diligence. So again, you can avoid these landmines, these traps that I and many others have gone through. So the goal of this, at the outcome of this, is clarity, specificity, and what you are best suited for and what you're not best suited for, so you can make a logical, sound decision on what you're going to do with yourself as a newly licensed insurance agent. Okay? So that's the grand overview. So let's get into the work. So the first step is doing a personal inventory. Again, here's the thing. I remember watching a very well-known insurance agency owner. His company starts with an F. They sell all sorts of insurance. And the one thing he said years ago, he just said that anybody can do the insurance business. And that's not true. Now, it might be true that anybody can do it, but should everybody do it? Should everybody do it? That's really the question. And more specifically for you, the other thing you've got to assess is selling this kind of insurance really best suited for my personality? As we'll get into it, there's a lot of different products. You got to see what works best for you, but you also have to do an assessment of where you are financially, what kind of time you have available, in order to determine if you can actually sell the thing that you want to sell, or if there's something else that is better for you to sell. So let's get into the personal assessment. So the first thing that you need to ask yourself, this is so important, is how fast do you need to make money? Now, I know that sounds silly because it's like, well, we all need to make money like yesterday, right? I know when I started back in 2011, I got into final expenses. I needed to make money quickly. It's a one call close business. You make money quickly within a couple of days to a few weeks. You start getting a paycheck. But not all insurance is like that. Some products take longer to pay, but they're substantially higher in commission, while other products pay frequently, but they're very low commission, but over time they build up, stack up, and pay even better. So I'll give you a couple of examples here. So annuities. Some of you probably have seen our training with Jess on annuities. Great way to make sales that make 4, 5-figure commissions. I mean, they're excellent products, excellent opportunity if you know what you're doing. The problem with annuities is that it is a multi-step sales cycle. Now, what that means is that you don't make the sale the first time you visit your client. You have to develop some rapport with the client. You've got to do a fact finder. You go back and then develop a prospectus or an opportunity to sell them on something based off of what it is they're looking for. And then either in that second or third call, you actually make the sale. But taking it a few steps further with annuities is going to take a couple of weeks to a month to 2 months possibly to go through suitability, making sure that the product is suitable for the client. All of this delays your ability to make money to the point of it may take months for your average case to actually be processed, meaning you ain't going to get paid for, a long time. So if you need to make money quick, selling a product like annuities is not a good idea. Likewise, health insurance is another great example. Health insurance, excellent product. Everybody needs it. Millions upon millions of prospects. Also, I would include Medicare into that mix. That's health insurance for seniors. Everybody needs it. Everybody wants it. And it pays really well, but it is a residual-based product that takes years to develop, stacking new policies before the income becomes very good. So in those circumstances, you may want to be, unless you've got the ability to withstand the time that it takes, or you get a job that provides a wage, and you're just not living off a straight commission, a health insurance product may not be necessarily the best suited. So the faster you need money, it's more likely you need a product that's a one-call close opportunity, like final expense, mortgage protection, some life insurance products that will turn quicker, meaning the sale gets done immediately on the first sales presentation. And then the approval is quick as well, so that you can turn around and make money faster. The other side of that is you may also, if you're in a financial position where you need money fast, consider taking a job in this space that pays some kind of draw or some kind of salary plus bonus in order to learn the business, but have some sort of guarantee of income. So number one, how fast you need money is going to determine what product you sell and really how you get paid, whether it's salary plus bonus or straight commission. Number two, wage plus straight commission. Again, here's the thing that I want to expand on this. While there's benefits and drawbacks to both. Now, as when I first started in the business, I chose a straight commission opportunity. In other words, I only made money when I made a sale. So I woke up unemployed every morning, right? I'm like, well, I don't know where I'm going to get my money today, but somebody's got it. I got to go knock on some doors, see some people, and sell a policy they want in order for me to get paid. That's the whole idea. The upside to that strategy, where you're just on 100% straight commission, is that you get paid the most, generally speaking, if you're on a straight commission, because you're carrying the risk of getting paid. You are also you should, if the organization is set up right, you should get paid the most because you're taking on that risk of generating the lead potentially, or at least making the sale and not getting compensated prior to that. So for the hardest work, if I take two people who are working the same amount, there's the wage version and then there's the straight commission. The straight commission agent should make more money, I believe, because they take on the entire risk of whether or not they're going to get paid, right? Whereas the wage position, because you're getting a guaranteed income, whatever it is, it's going to lower the ceiling of income you could earn otherwise. It's not that it's a bad idea, but is it a long-term opportunity you want it? Maybe it's a better situation for you. The other nice thing about having a wage is you don't have the fear, the anxiety that a straight commission agent has. Some people can handle it great, but other people, the idea of waking up without an income every morning, guaranteed, is stressful. And that affects their performance. And if you can't perform, meaning sell, well, you're not going to be very effective. So wage positions plus bonus usually are great opportunities for people who need a guaranteed income and operate better in that setup, but also understanding that they're probably going to have a cap on commission that's much lower than the performing agent that's a straight commission that works the same, does the same amount of hours, et cetera. Another thing you need to consider is, are you more of a pitchman, somebody who's like the ShamWow guy, great salesperson, loves that kind of like, how do you say, more just straightforward, making the close, making the sale happen type of salesperson? Or are you more of the consultative type of salesperson? I think there's a deviation between strategies. Some people can be successful at both, but there's different personalities that succeed given the type of product you're selling. I'll give you a couple of examples. So in final expense, what we sell at the Dig Agency, it's a little bit consultative, but mostly all about making the sale on the first call, meaning you're going to have to overcome objections to making a decision. You're going to have to overcome objections on the front end of the phone call. You're going to have to be good and thinking on your feet, which is all stuff that you can train, but you have to be comfortable with that approach and getting the sale on the first call, because as we discover as final expense agents, if you don't make the sale on the first call, you never do 99% of the time. But some people aren't built like that. They are more of what I would call a consultative salesperson. They like to do more fact finding. They like to dig in to see what the client circumstances are and then make a recommendation that's more based off of the information and facts they discover, and maybe are okay with a multi-step process to getting it done and may not be as strong on the close. Again, this isn't an either or circumstance. You could definitely be both. But what I find is that products that are a little bit more complicated are more consultative. The sales, I think, that are more successful are based more on the consultative side. So for example, Medicare, to some extent ACA, but definitely Medicare, ACA being health insurance, annuities for sure, suit better with a person who has more of a consultative angle, that is comfortable sitting down and fact finding, discovering what the client has, what their pain points are and what their pleasure points are, and then packaging an offer that suits those particular instances to seal the deal that way. So again, the more consultative it has to be, in my experience, the more often it is a product that is a multi-step sales process like an annuity, or is more of a residual-based product that relies on continuity in order to be paid the most. So keep that in mind. But again, you can do both. I know we sell or teach a kind of consultative approach. It's very minority consultative, meaning it's not like all consultative. There's definitely salesmanship in it to convince somebody to buy, much more so than the consultative side. So they can be both. Okay. Number 4, do you want a job selling insurance, or do you want a business selling insurance? Now, this is really important because, again, I came into this business. All the men in my family were entrepreneurs. My dad had a chemical business he sold in 2006 to Ecolab. My uncle helped start XM Radio back in the 90s. And then Grandpa Logan had an HVAC industrial business in Detroit back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. So they all were businessmen. All right. Maybe my uncle is more of like an intrapreneur, but the entrepreneurship blood runs deep in my veins. So for me, it was no question. I got to run my own business. And I know from my family what a business running it is actually like. You don't just sell, you invest your money into leads, you take care of your clients, you're always managing the processes in your systems, you're looking for ways to scale. You really have to play multiple roles. And there's a lot more risks when you run a business than versus having a job. And so what I have discovered, most people actually do better, let's say like 90 to 95%, if they join something more akin to a job that has less risk. This is really a profile in risk and what you're comfortable with. The idea of running a business may sound lucrative. It should. It's a great thing, but it's not appropriate for everybody. But there are opportunities to get the benefits of making a good income without the hangups and risks associated with running a business. And that's part of the reason, shameless plug, we run a free lead system at the Dig Agency because the one thing that we have seen for years that hurts a lot of agents is having them to rely on investing in leads on a weekly basis. It sounds like it makes sense on paper, and it does for a minority of people. But what I've discovered is most people have a really hard time of managing money, of accepting the risk to a point where it doesn't affect their performance, and then doing that for years on end. Whereas in the free lead program, by taking that risk away, it gets kind of more like a job, but it still has the benefits of entrepreneurship. It's a straight commission. There's no income cap. And people just worry about selling as opposed to lead generating. So it's been a nice intermediate level where you kind of get the best of both worlds. But the point of me saying all this, guys, is that you got to kind of know what your risk appetite is. If you're comfortable being responsible for everything, running an insurance business, or your model based off of buying leads, being responsible for everything might be up your alley, although that's probably a small minority. But if you're uncomfortable with that and you like the idea of just worrying about one thing, in this case, selling and not lead generation and other elements of running a business, more of the positions that are more akin to a job might be better suited for you. Another thing, remote versus face-to-face work. So the beautiful thing that came out of COVID is the insurance business. I'll just say this up front. The insurance business is a dinosaur. Everybody in the insurance business is 5 or 10 years behind the technological innovations we see in other industries. And one of the things that we're way behind on, had been at least up to 2020, is the ability to do this business remotely, sight unseen, not in front of a prospect. Okay. There were shops and agencies that were doing it, but man, it was small. I think I had like 1 or 2 telesales agents back in beginning of 2020. All that changed when COVID shut everybody down. In some states, you couldn't even door knock. And carriers like mine or agencies like mine had the pivot because we saw the writing on the wall. Nobody wants to do face-to-face anymore. And then concurrently, the trend in work became a remote style of working. I mean, I have personal friends that work at Unum that only go in once or twice a week here in Chattanooga. They love being at home. They can get all their work done at home, arguably probably a little more productive. And so I think this culture of remote working has really seeped in across the board in all industries. And so what we've seen, and because of how we've adapted, probably 95% of our agents are now remote at the Dig Agency. They don't want to see people face to face. But with that said, the point of all this is to say, you have to decide, what are you best suited for? Are you the style of agent that can sell sight unseen over the phone or maybe over a Zoom call? Some products support that. Or do you just prefer to sell the old fashioned way, knocking on a door or pre-setting an appointment, sitting down with the prospect and trying to sell them a policy? I have found now, I think nowadays with the training and how we've implemented our agency, more people are suited for telesales than I originally imagined a year ago. However, there are some people who are better off face-to-face. I don't think that one strategy is more difficult than the other. I used to say telesales was that way. But when we ramped up our free lead program, we really worked on building up our training. I saw that people could do it if they would follow the system. So I'm much more neutral. I think you got to follow your instinct and gut. In other words, do you do better in front of people live? Well, if that's the case, do face-to-face. Most of the products that are out there support it, and it absolutely still works. Don't ever trust anybody that says, look, guys, face-to-face is a failed business model. It's not true. It still absolutely works. Likewise, for telesales, look, if you like the idea of the remote style of business, you want to work from home, you don't want to fight traffic, you like talking to people over the phone, and it's a good setup for you, the same is true for telesales. It is a model that absolutely works as long as you join an agency that has a system, of course, that has it all working for you. So long story short, figure out where you best align. So then all of this, again, everything we talked about is informing you where you should go. Okay. So step 2 here is, once you've created this personal assessment of yourself and where you best sit with these different elements, how fast you need money, do you want a salary plus bonus or straight commission? Are you comfortable doing a not a hard sales approach, but a salesmanship type of strategy, or more of a consultative strategy? Do you want a job? Do you want a business? Or do you want remote or traditional sales? Once you've discovered and worked through all this, it makes the next step of picking the product and ultimately the agency a lot easier, okay? If you don't do this personal assessment, the rest of this, like, you're just going to be taken by anything that sounds halfway decent. And the graveyard of failed agents is full of agents who did not do a personal assessment. They just followed somebody who sounded good, and lo and behold, discovered it wasn't for them. Don't be that guy, okay? All right, so let's go through the products options here. And I'm going to give you a quick overview of what it is, how it works, how you get paid, and the pros and cons of each, okay? So first of all is property and casualty. This would be your car insurance. This would also be your home insurance. Think State Farm, Allstate, any of these type of products. So these are residual-based products. So the idea behind these products is that their commission's a little bit lower, although it depends on the size of the policy. You might have somebody who has 5 cars, some jet skis, and a boat. Probably a big deal. And then have the homeowners wrapped in. So first year commission will be good. But generally speaking, the commissions are a little bit lower. But over time, if you retain that business and stack more and more new policies on top of that with other clients, you're going to have a high, longer-term income based off of renewals and residual income. So property and casualty is a residual-based product that pays a residual-based income. And that's if you're on a straight commission. Now, if you're on a wage, there are many companies that will give you a wage plus bonus. You won't own the book of business, but it gets you into the business and start making money and getting some experience. PNC is great if you have the long term in mind, meaning you want to build a residual income and you can weather the first couple of years investing your money buying leads, not making a lot of money in that first year or two, and then taking care of your clients and then watching that money stack and stack and stack. There's lots of agents that are successful. The joke in our business is the car insurance agents, by about the time they make $100,000 a year in income, they're golfing most of the time. They work 15, 20 hours a week, maybe. But it is something you can do. And there's usually PNC shops everywhere hiring at all times. So it is a place if you're more akin to getting a job and you don't want to fool with, the residual element, you just want a wage plus bonus, you can go get a job, get working. You do need a property and casualty license in order to do those, of course. They'll probably also want you to get life insurance license. A lot of PNC shops now really are having you push license or life insurance sales, which I think is great because there's a lot of markets, I think like Florida. I mean, can you imagine what's going to happen after this hurricane rolls through in Florida here? Like how many insurance companies are going to pull out, property and casualty companies. California has been in this boat. So some of the markets are tumultuous with companies pulling out, not offering coverage anymore. So they like their agents to sell life insurance. So they're probably going to have you get all of those products or all those licenses. Okay. All right. Continuing on here, you have health insurance. So health insurance, Obamacare, Trump care, Biden care, whatever care, ACA, Affordable Health Care Act. Okay. This is the primary product that's sold in what we think of when we think of health insurance. It's coverage with companies we all know, Molina, Oscar, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, et cetera. And you sell a policy to a client and get them approved. And if something happens, they got coverage in place. There are subsidies on the market that help lower the cost based off of the income that the client has. So that it helps make the sale a little bit easier depending on the income that the client makes. And it is a mass market product. Everybody needs health insurance. Okay. They don't have to get it anymore. There's no mandate requirement for health insurance. But there are millions upon millions of prospects that are looking for coverage that is affordable and high quality too. So I like the ACA market, health insurance market, because it's a huge market. It's simple to find prospects. Even if you don't have the ability to buy leads, look, you can go do grassroots marketing. Luis Moreno, my friend in the business, would do flea markets. He'd have people do booths at educational and informational events, be a resource for hospitals that have patients coming in without coverage and getting them enrolled. There's a huge opportunity in the ACA space, even if you don't have the money for marketing. So what's the downside to ACA? By the way, ACA can be sold over the phone all day long, or you can sell it face to face. So, and there are plenty of call centers if you wanted to go that route to learn the business that will pay you a salary plus bonus as you get up and running. So what's the drawbacks to ACA? Well, the drawback number one is that ACA is a product that pays very little if you're on a straight commission opportunity. It's probably going to pay about $20, give or take, in most states, some states way less, per month per member. So if you write me, my wife, and then my 4 kids, you get 6 people times 20, you get paid $120 a month for life, which is great. But how often does that happen? Most people are going to sell onesies and twosies policies, so they're going to be a lot less. So, and it takes a long time before that money stacks up in residual income, like the PNC opportunity. Okay. So the problem with ACA is that it takes years to build and to become very successful and have a great income. Great business model, just takes time. The other side of this, and this is always any type of health insurance product, always has a risk of government intervention. So case in point, when I started in 2011, the Affordable Health Care Act was passed and was starting to be implemented during the Obama era. Okay. And what started to happen to agents is there were personal insurance agents or personal health insurance agents that sold personal policies. Well, now you couldn't underwrite those policies anymore, right? Because that's the nice thing about ACA, there's no health underwriting. And all of these policies basically went to zero commission. So these agents who had built businesses for years got to the point where they may had 6-figure salaries or 6-figure commissions coming in every year. They lost all of it. It went to zero by 13, 14, or 15. Now, incidentally, what had happened is the products got redone. I don't know exactly what happened, but 18, 19, 20, they started paying commissions on them again in the current form that they are, because they need agents to sell this stuff. They just couldn't rely on the navigators. The agents do a great job of getting enrollments on the books and getting clients covered, which is the stated mission of why ACA is even out there, to get people insurance they otherwise couldn't afford or wouldn't get on their own. So, but the thing is ACA going to change? We have an election at the filming of this. It's going to go one way or the other. Personally, I don't think it's going to change much. Most government programs become what's the word I'm looking for? They don't ever go away. When Social Security and Medicare are passed and Medicaid, those don't go away. They're there, and we deal with them, right? And health insurance isn't going away. Worst case scenario, something will change depending on the administration that comes in, but I don't think it's going away, meaning there's always going to be some kind of opportunity to help people. But I really don't think that the Republicans had their chance during the first Trump administration to get rid of it. They didn't. And I don't think it's going away. That's a personal opinion. I could be wrong. But with that said, ACA health insurance always has governmental risk. So it is something you have to concern yourself with if you're thinking, well, I'm going to get into this business 10 years from now and build this income stream. I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. Who does, right? So something to think about. Okay. I would label Medicare kind of the same thing as ACA in a lot of different ways. It's a residual-based product. It pays great if you stack up the policies over many, many, many years. It takes time, though, to get started. So if you need money fast, unless you get a job that's wage plus bonus, it's not going to pay very good for a year, maybe 2 years before it really picks up. You can sell it over the phone. You can sell it in person. It's more of a consultative sale, although I will say it's a one-call close. It really should be. You need to train yourself to be a one-call close person in Medicare if you aren't. And it is a business model where you can buy your own leads, have companies provide them for free, or do grassroots marketing in order to uncover them. And like ACA, Medicare does have governmental issues. It is Medicare. Medicare Advantage is the primary product that was passed back in, I think, 06, 07 in the Bush era, really implemented late aughts, early teens. And there's always concerns about making sure that it's run correctly and financially solvent. So again, don't think Medicare is going away, but there are products that come into a market then exit. That was a big problem early on in the Medicare Advantage era in the early teens. And some products like What's the product, guys? I know some of you probably on the Medicare here who are watching this live. Wellspring, they pulled out they stopped paying commissions on prescription drug plans, right? So stuff like that happens. Not a good idea. I don't think it's a good look for the company. Yeah, WellCare. Thank you, Megan. And there are agents who are rioting over this, literally. Well, figuratively. I don't know if they're rioting, but they're not happy. And this is stuff that you got to worry about. Okay. So, but with that said, I think Medicare's not going anywhere. There are so many people who are getting to retirement age. They paid into the system all these years. They're going to hold their Congress critter accountable. If they're Republican or Democrat, they start threatening getting rid of Medicare in some substantial way. They're out of there, right? Party lines be damned. Okay, moving on here. So we talked a lot about PNC health insurance products. Let's take a move into life insurance and talk about some of the pros and cons here. Mortgage protection. What is mortgage protection? Typically, it's a term insurance product that is sold to a younger demographic that are buying homes and want to have a policy to pay off at least the mortgage so survivors don't have to come out of pocket for it, although you can couple into that sale what we call living benefits that pay an additional benefit if they have a stroke, heart attack, cancer, or more money to replace income. Okay. It was a product that was hot back between 2000 and 2010 with the prior to the Great Recession, all of the liar's loans that went out. A lot of people are buying houses. And incidentally, when you buy a house, that's public information, and that's where the mortgage protection companies get that data to then mail you the junk mail that you get to turn it into a lead, right? So that market went dead until the economy, I think, for Main Street picked back up in 15 and 16. You saw a lot more term insurance and mortgage protection sold really up to, I'd say, 2021-ish. Getting into COVID to some extent, there's still a lot of home sales, but it is really slowed down with rates being higher. So a couple of things, pros and cons about it. Now they give you a little history behind the product. Pros, you can sell it over the phone. Most all mortgage protection now is sold over the phone. Historically, it was sold in the client's home. You'd have to drive to different cities to sell it because it was hard to get leads. The leads are really good quality too. It is a high first-year commission product. So if you need money fast, mortgage protection is the product to sell. Incidentally, it is a one-call close product. I don't know many wage-based life insurance sales opportunities. Mortgage protection is no different. It's mostly a straight commission product, although I'm sure there's some call centers where you can make a commission, maybe not necessarily a wage, in order to offset the lead costs. And it can be sold remotely or over the phone. I think I mentioned that already. So what are the drawbacks? Again, this is like, I wouldn't say this is like the government intervention thing, but it is a market-driven product sale. So what's the market? Market is home sales. Protecting the what? The mortgage. Typically, people become interested in protection at the time of sale or shortly thereafter. In other words, when I bought my house in 2019, I had like 4 or 5 leads come in saying, hey, you may qualify for a mortgage protection program, right? Because that's when the sale or when the lead generation process occurs, okay? But what we've seen, again, with this housing market really slowing down, the volume of lead availability slows down too. So it's a model that, to me, which is why I didn't go mortgage protection to begin with, is predicated on what's happening that's completely outside of my control. Like, is there a lot of houses being sold or not? I can't control that. So why sell a product where I have to be tied to something I can't control? I never liked that idea. So that is definitely a downside of mortgage protection, despite its many upsides, something to consider. Another product, some of you are very familiar with, Index Universal Life. What's an Index Universal Life plan? In short, it is a product to where the ability to grow the value of the plan is tied to a market index. So as the economy does well, the index tied to that does well, growing the value of the plan. The kicker is, in most cases, there's zero risk for loss. And so the way this is sold, it's not an investment, it's life insurance. There's some issues with it we'll go into in a minute. But it's sold as a way to retire tax-free, to grow your insurance to where you're in a position that when you retire, You have much less risk than if you put it in a 401k. So that's how a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people pitch it as an alternative to a typical traditional retirement strategy like 401k. So what are the pros and cons of this? So first of all, some people sell it in one call. Some people take multiple steps. It does require, typically, not with all companies, but more underwriting than what you would see with other products. So there's a little bit of a slower sales cycle. It's not as slow as annuities, but it is a little bit slower than, say, a final expense product. The flip side of that is that the commissions can be really, really good because they're usually being sold at putting in $150, $200+ a month. Commissions on these things can be very good. So they lead to a 4-figure plus type of commission opportunity. And generally a little bit, I would say possibly a little bit faster than annuities, but then a little slower than final expense. You can sell it over the phone. You can sell it in person. Either way works well. I don't know of many companies that offer wage plus bonus situations with these kind of products. They are a little bit more technical. There's risks of screwing the client. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'll give you my little treatise on universal life products and what I've seen over the years. But it's a legit opportunity. I think there's a lot of one thing that's a benefit of IULs is there is a ton of interest in the product organically. Like if I was in the IUL business, I would be on TikTok pumping up IULs and on Instagram pumping up IULs and what they can do and how great they are, because there's just kind of an undercurrent of interest in those products in a lot of different generations. And if you played your cards right, you could get great leads without much of a cost other than editing and the creative side of making the videos. So you do have this trend of interest that you really don't get maybe in Medicare and to some extent ACA different times of the year, but you definitely don't get with final expense. That can definitely play to your advantage. So what is it about IULs I don't like? First of all, I'll give you a little story. So what we ran into early in the 2010s were a lot of universal life products. Now, these were sold back in the 80s when interest rates were like 5 to 7%. But they were sold by agents as whole life insurance at half the cost because you could illustrate, meaning you could design the universal life product to last forever, the life of the client, at a fixed premium, given the interest rates would stay the same. But the interest rates on the policies were a function of what the actual interest rates were in the economy. And they're never fixed, okay? So what happened, so you guys who've been here forever on this earth, what happened in the 90s with interest rates in the 2000s? They became effectively zero over a long enough haul. And the impact that had on the clients in the 80s and 90s that bought these is their policies didn't perform anymore because there was no interest rate to grow the cash value of the policy. The other side is that universal life don't necessarily fix the cost components of the product. And so as the client ages, the cost insures them goes up. And that cash value that wasn't really growing because interest rates are really low compared to the ever-raising cost of the interest or of the cost of insurance, guess what happens? The premiums can't cover this cost difference. So they started dipping into the cash value, And then what would happen is that these clients that were otherwise assured back when they bought the plan that the policy was certain as a sunrise, guess what happened? They get a letter in the mail that their policy goes up from $50 a month to $200 a month. And they're in their 70s, their health is terrible, and they can't afford the thing because they're on a fixed income now. And they're pissed, to say it lightly. And we have to go in there and sell them something that's half or less of coverage, but will guarantee the premium will never go up. And it's a hard sale. But the point is, to the client, they were sold a bill of goods that really should have never been sold. And I assure you, agents are doing that right now. They're selling an IUL as it's the greatest thing ever, but they're undervaluing the premium. They're not really being realistic with interest rates or what happens if the economy crashes long enough period of time, or if it goes sideways and there's not a lot of gain. And there are going to be people who really just wanted certainty, maybe that a whole life policy that could provide a peace of mind with some benefit of growth that never ever got it because they got drawn into this whole rigmarole that IULs and kind of its intrigue has at the present moment. So that's not necessarily a condemnation of IULs. It's just like if you're going to sell it the right way and understand what you're getting into. But I think the IUL market, my IUL market is great if you've got the money to buy the leads and you've got the ability to stick with it, and a little bit slower sales cycle, but it can be great if you sell it the right way. Yeah. Okay. And then the final one, of course, how could I not end out today's training, at least on the different products, then with what other than final expense? So final expense is my product du jour. I picked it in 2011. I really didn't have a ton of options. Medicare was the other one, but I picked final expense because it's a decent first year commission. It's a salesman's product. It's a one call close. It's not technical. I sell to older Americans. I like old people. They're nice for the most part. And there's a lot of them, even more now than there was then and will be for the next 20 years. So there's a growing market. And the other benefit of final expense is my clients receive a guaranteed income every single month. Social Security has never missed a payment since it started in the 40s, I think. Okay. And so when it comes to market undulations, whatever's happening in the economy, final expense is solid. It doesn't go up and down. Even with COVID, we didn't see mass lapses. You would have thought maybe that would have happened because inflation happened to an extent, but that did not happen with our clients because, incidentally, the other benefit of final expenses being older, they've had people and friends and family who have died. You don't need to convince them they need to have life insurance. They get it. So they tend to hold on to it because it's important to them. So these are the things that I loved about the product when I got in. And the biggest change in the business, it really hasn't changed all that much, except that most now are 95% selling over the phone. At least new agents are. So the remote model is the king of the models. Very few agents are selling in person. It's a great business model to sell remotely. There are free lead programs like what we do at the Dig Agency available. If you don't want to buy your own leads, you can definitely do that too as well. I don't see a lot of wage-based products that are out there. And I just think overall, Final Expense is a great first product to sell that's going to teach you how to sell as a salesperson and has plenty of access to prospects and gives you the opportunity for a great income. So what are the drawbacks to Final Expense? I want to hit on that a little bit. Number one, you're dealing with poor people. I'll be honest with you. And then I'm just being blunt. There's no like criticism of poor, but we're dealing with people who don't have a lot of money. And part of the poverty, it's not just the income, it's a mindset. Some of our clients have a poverty mindset. They aren't very good managing money. They're here today, gone tomorrow. There's some people who just, they're not consistent. They're wishy-washy when it comes to keeping what we sold them. Again, you got to just deal with that, but that's part of the deal. Our clients are older. If you don't like dealing with old people, might not be for you. Some people prefer a younger demographic. Completely fine. It is something that not everybody likes. And other than that, it's not a residual income business. Final Expense is made for its first year commission. That's why you do it. You don't get into Final Expense to build a residual income after 10 years. It just doesn't happen. The residuals probably average 5%. If you're buying your own leads, much lower if you're not. It's not a business to build residual income off of. The only way to do that would be if you were to build an agency or then to pivot to Medicare or ACA and sell it or cross-sell it, okay? But I think it's a great product, and this is why strategically we chose to get out of the ACA business, get out of the Medicare business, and refocus on Final Expense at the Dig Agency because most people getting into this business are brand new, and they need something they can make money with fast, not something I have to wait for. That isn't technically difficult. And Final Expense is imperfect, but it largely fits that bill. Now, rounding this out, because I've gone way longer than I thought I would, but it happens. So thank you for your patience. Let's hit on the final note here, and that's the agency selection. So you've worked through your personal assessment. You've sat back and thought, okay, I like this product. I don't like that. You kind of are narrowing down your products. It's at this point you should look for an agency. Well, what typically happens is people find an agency. It sounds good. It says everything they want, but then they're in this instance to where they didn't realize the product doesn't have the turnaround time of getting paid as much as they need it to in order to succeed long term. So the point being is that you got to do your personal assessment and the product knowledge first and know the pros and cons before you can pick the right agency. But let's talk about some things about the insurance business when it comes to agencies that you must know. You must know. as you start to interview them, as you start to talk to them, because there are some serious problems. There are bad actors in this business if you haven't discovered yet. So let's talk about them. Number one, this is especially common in the life insurance business, less so Medicare, health insurance, and P&C, but almost like 80%, 90% of the agencies out there are multi-level marketing companies, okay? You know what a multi-level marketing company is. Think like Herbalife, Amway, right? Where everybody's telling you you're going to make all this money and not do much if you just join my team and buy all this crap, right? That's an MLM. It's a cult, right? So everybody thinks the same, acts the same. They deny reality, right? And that behavior, that business model has made its way 20 plus years ago from those companies traditionally associated with MLM into the life insurance space. So how do you know if your agency is an MLM? I'll give you a couple of tips real quick. Number one, they talk about recruiting more than selling. For example, when somebody joins us, we might talk about how they can get referral fees if they send us agents that actually sell. But 99% of the conversation is about you join us because you're going to want to learn how to sell and make money off of selling. Okay. So likewise, any of these agencies that are out there, if they're not talking about how they're going to help you make money selling insurance, but rather talk about recruiting, run. Don't talk to the recruiting agencies. Talk to the agencies talking about selling first and foremost, okay? Number two, there's typically, you know, like a charismatic leader. You know, he's on stage and he's yelling and he's dressed nice. And, you know, he talks less about the business and more of like a motivational guru, right? That's a sign. Here's your sign that that's an MLM. Okay. Run for the hills, turn around, go another direction. What other signs are there? Oh, the way that a lot of these MLMs operate in life insurance space is they really encourage you to buy their leads. Their leads are magic. You just spend this money on leads and the people come after you and they can't wait to buy from you. Well, that's not how any leads are. It takes work and skill. But the leads that many times these agencies are selling have been worked through a half dozen to a dozen times already. What they make them out like they're exclusive to you, meaning they've never been talked to before, but they've been worked to death. Or they're not really leads. They're like names in a phone book. Okay. Again, this company out there that starts with an F, very popular years ago. They've not as popular these days. They used to sell these leads for $10 a pop. And there are these complaint videos all over YouTube about how this company ripped them off. They sold them all these leads, $2 or $3 or $4 grand down the hole, and they were nothing like what they were represented as. So be careful if they're really pushing this magical type of lead. Now, there are good leads that are better than others, so you got to be able to discern. So when it comes to looking at MLMs, it's not just like, oh, they want you to buy leads, bad. No, not necessarily. It's the whole picture. Are they talking about recruiting? Is there the charismatic leader that is more motivational than oriented towards selling and helping you grow in that category from a skill set development? And then are they pushing these leads that others have said are garbage? There'll always be people who say leads are garbage, but like, are there literally complaints or lawsuits, right? So these are things you need to be discerning for, okay? Read between the lines, right? Also, the last thing I want to mention here is what do you do to discover this, right? Like I talked about discerning. Well, what do you mean, Dave, discern? So there's a 3-step process here. Number one, do your due diligence. The fact that you're on this video and you've made it 45 minutes of the way through shows me that you actually take this business seriously. Okay. Most people don't, you know, because I wasn't like standing in front of a supercar or, you know, whatever in the first 5 minutes and trying to impress them with crap. They immediately click off and go waste time somewhere else on YouTube. The fact that you're here at this point means you actually understand why that's crap and why your career in doing it the right way from the beginning is so vital. So do your due diligence. Talk to agents in the agency you're looking to join. Talk to the people as much as you can about who they are, what their values are, what they represent. Get opportunities to talk to people and representatives of those companies, not just one, but multiple. The one thing I'll say is the best thing to do is ask for references. Look for references. Ask the owner or the person interviewing you, hey, you got 3 people I could send an email to just to ask them a few questions. They should always say, absolutely. Here's their email. Ask whatever you want. That in of itself should show you they have nothing to hide, that they're serious about the business and serious about your success. If they kind of, revolt at that, don't like the idea of that, like, I don't know about that. Like, what are they hiding? That's the first thing I think of, because look, it's a job. I'm about to change my career. I'm taking a huge risk joining your agency. You can't let me talk to at least one person? There's not 3 people that like working with you that are successful? How about you find another organization is what I would tell you. Make sure that you interview multiple agencies. I mean, I tell people who want to join my agency, do the same thing. What the worst thing we could do is do a mishire. And ask me how I know. Bringing in agents who are unsuitable for the agency. Okay. We don't want to, smart agency owners don't want to have a mishire. It costs way more time and money and stress and involvement than is worth the effort. What we want to do, smart agency owners, is find the best match people. And I think part of that process is, as you as the candidate need to look at multiple organizations, because what you don't want to do is like jump in with the first thing that sounds great, only to look back and think, oh, the grass is greener over there, but now I'm tied down and this and that and all these other things. You don't want to be in that position. Okay. So multiple agencies, at least 2, talk to get through the process, feel them out, ask for references, and then you're in a position of strength as an agent to pick the best opportunities. And that's how you do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the way, as you recently received your license or about to, a strategy, a blueprint. Hopefully I was detailed enough about how to assess yourself personally, to figure out where your strengths and weaknesses lie and what you're capable and not capable of, to assess the products that are out there that are best suited for you and what your personal situation is. And then last but not least, having a process of finding the best agency to join, so you don't waste your career simply because the agency sucked. And it happens all the time, guys. This isn't some made up problem. It's common. It happens every single day. So don't be the failed agent. Don't join them. Take your time. Nothing wrong with slowing things down and thinking through this to find out which organization is going to be best suited for you so that you can survive and thrive in this business. I quit this business a year in because I really failed out because I didn't follow the system. That's another topic for another day. But I'm so glad I came back, because this business has done so much for my business, so much for my family, so much for me. And I thank God that I'm here, and I want you to join me and be with me. But it's going to take time, and it's going to take discernment. So there's my advice. Okay.